Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's lesson is about basic shapes, but we're diving more into the broader spectrum of all the geometric shapes. So my previous 4 videos were, well, when it involved the basic shapes, cube, cone, cylinder, and sphere. Those were done just to start things off. Today we are going to do the hexagon. And if you're not familiar with the hexagon, it has 6 sides. And if you would like to know what pen I'm using, it's a Bic Ultra Round Stick Grip. You can get this for pretty cheap at your local store. I think I got these at Walgreens. Get them at CVS. You can order them. Yeah, it's not hard to find at all. Okay, so without further, by the way, this little creature over here is just gonna chill out with us. It's just something I doodled in my sketchbook. I don't remember when I did this. It wasn't too long ago. So that's what it looks like over there. All right, so let's do a front 3/4 hexagon. Okay, so I'm just going to do very, very light outline, and it's going to be in the front 3/4 view. And if those of you listening right now have taken my creature design workshop or basically any kind of design course, you'll know that front 3/4 views tend to be the most sought after views because it's like the money shot. You can show off a little bit of the top of the project or product, the side, the front, and you can see the width of it. So it's pretty good. Okay, we got 1 side, 2 side, and we got 3 over here, 4 over here, 5 over here, and then we're going to connect the 6th side here. So it's going to be pretty light on your screen, and for good reason. It's because this is just, well, I was going to say the backbone. It's not the creature's backbone. It's the drawing's backbone. It's the foundation. So we're laying the light gestural foundation because eventually I'm going to be sketching over top of this. I'm going to be sketching more details and making it more fleshed out. Okay, so obviously this corner down here. Oh, and if you're following along with me, you don't have to be drawing in anything fancy. This is just a smaller Moleskine sketchbook. I believe this is what is it, 6 by 8, maybe 5 by 8. You can pick these up on Amazon. You can check out my affiliate store. Links are in the description, and I also have a couple links that pop up right on the screen as you're watching in the beginning of the video. So you want to make sure you check that out if you have trouble finding the materials that I use, because I know sometimes in certain countries these things are not available, like Amazon doesn't run, or for whatever reason customs just keeps it from there. So you don't have to worry about that if you just pick it up from my store. Okay, to help myself out, I'm just going to make sure that I'm keeping everything in perspective. So these construction lines that I'm whipping across the surface here are just connecting the corners. Okay, some of these might be a little off. That's okay because I can kind of fidget those areas later. The one thing that I'm determining now as I'm drawing is these corners right here. So 1, 2, and then 3, and then 4. Those are probably going to be where the legs are. And then this one down here, since it's closest to us, is going to be the head. And this is going to be the tail over here. So we might get a really neat 4-legged critter. I don't know what it's going to look like, but you know, let's make it kind of cool. No, not kind of cool. Let's make it cool. Yeah, that sounds better. All right, so, and also, I am just winging this. I'm not doing anything special. I'm not looking at reference right now. But the one thing that I do have in front of me, I'm not looking at art reference, like photographs. I have a couple powder printed like animal studies that I can just put up next to my desk. I got a horse, I got a couple dinosaurs, and I do have 2 humans too. So I'm going to be looking at those constantly. All right. I don't know where we can go with this, but let's see. I'm going to start to play with the belly and maybe the side of it. Now these ovals that I put in here, I would like you guys to put ovals in your creature's leg joints right now, and then maybe even an oval where later on the head is going to go. Now the shape of the head won't have to be replacing that exact oval. the neck could come out from this space and then your head is down here. Okay, whatever tends to work for you. Because remember, we're making this up. This creature does not live on Earth. Okay, so we don't know how creatures live on other planets. But what we do know is that the possibilities are absolutely endless. All right. So now what I'm doing is I'm putting in where I believe a center line could run down the creature's basically spine. It's always good to put a center line in there because it allows you to see the symmetry of your creature even if it's turned at a different view, and it's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. It's asymmetrical. Okay, there's foreshortening involved. Everything on this side of the creature is going to be slightly smaller or squeezed. And over here, you're going to see the full glory of whatever is on the body. But I do know that backbones and protruding shapes from whether they're bones, spikes, or whatever, those are a lot of fun to draw. And I'm thinking that this thing could probably benefit from being reptilian. Let's do that. Okay, so the one marking that I'm putting up here now is a very light center line of where the tail is eventually going to end up. And that's it. I'm not going to put anything else on there. The next thing that I want to do is I at least want to figure out how far down the head is going to go. Maybe it has a slightly longer neck poking out, and then I need to make sure that if I do have a longer neck here, that we can see the neck. One of the problems that I used to have whenever I would draw creatures growing up is that I would compact the shape to the point where there was no neck and it just looked really stiff. I still do that sometimes. I've been drawing a long time. I still do that. I have to catch myself. Okay, so the hexagon is turning into quite the critter. And I'm going to honor the shape. I'm not going to put any more limbs on it, even though it's tempting to put arms and weird legs and appendages. Well, appendages are one thing, but extra arms, I'm not going to put anymore, even though I want to fold some up right here and make it really weird and creepy. Oh, it's so tempting, but I can't. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to play up this shape, and what if it's like a flying squirrel? That would be kind of neat. The other thing that I have to keep in mind is the torso area. Okay, so what that means is when you're drawing, especially a quadruped in side view, it's very tempting to draw the front legs, draw the rear legs, and squeeze them together so much that there's actually no abdomen. There's no indication of a stomach, rib cage, or anything. You have to make sure that you do show an area where this chest can compress and breathe. And remember, we're sketching living, breathing creatures here, all right? And we want to make this as believable as possible, especially if we're drawing on a 2D plane and we're at the mercy of like shadows and depth perception, not depth perception, I'm sorry, atmospheric perspective, and like cast shadowing and things like that to make it feel 3D. Okay, this thing, I'm starting to figure out what's happening now. It's almost like a reptile that lived before the dinosaurs even came. Okay, so it still looked it walked like a crocodile, maybe like a dimetrodon or something. I love dimetrodons, by the way. Maybe it walked like that, towards kind of bow-legged. Okay, and I still want to pay attention to that perspective. Okay, so if the elbow's here, I'm just going to do a small little oval. That's it. Those of you drawing along with me, make sure that you indicate where those joints are. That's going to really come in handy later, because when you're attaching muscles and you're envisioning bones and tendons within these areas, you're going to know where those limbs have to start bending and stretching and stuff. You won't now, and like drawing a stick figure. Okay, I have the center line for the entire leg, front and back. All right, that's really important. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Since it's in front 3/4 view and the elbow pokes out somewhat but not severely, I'm just going to do a very light perspective line going across here. So I know that the joint is going to hit that perspective line on this side. And since the forearm, like we as humans, if you're just going to get down on all fours and pretend you're a dog, our arms kind of jut outwards a little bit, like the elbows poke out. I mean, just look at how a crocodile walks. Look at how a lizard walks, like a Komodo dragon. They're big enough to where you can see the details. They don't walk with their elbows completely pointing behind them. Okay, it's kind of outwards, so you want to honor that, and then the forearms come back in. It also really helps convince the viewer that there's weight distribution. This is another thing that I teach in my workshop, my creature design workshop. Weight distribution is very important because it gives the illusion that there's weight to the creature. And if there's weight, it's alive. And if it's alive, it's going to be very believable. So you notice that as I'm sketching this creature, I'm not worried about exact shapes happening on the outside of here or the silhouette. What I'm doing is I'm just taking my pen and I'm lightly putting in lines of where I could eventually form those lines into a solid shape. Because as I'm sketching this creature and I'm thinking about the thickness of the limbs and where things could go, things could change, okay? I'm just giving myself an idea, but I'm also thinking about where the limbs will bend. And this is why it's really important, especially when you're drawing with a pen, to keep things light. Because what goes down here is down. You cannot get this up. Yes, they have erasers that can erase pen, but why in the heck would you want to do that? It's annoying. They're more expensive to buy. You shouldn't have to erase pen. Embrace what's happening, and you just let the pen do the talking, not you. You're just holding it. That's all you're doing. Okay? If you feel like you're constantly making a mistake and you want to erase, that has nothing to do with your artwork. It's you. So you need to let yourself make all the lines that they can, and then it's up to your creativity to actually, bounce ideas off of that. Sometimes, yes, we screw up. Yes, I screw up. I do need an eraser occasionally, like if I make something too long or the proportions just suck and I'm just like, you know what, I shouldn't have drawn that. Yes, I'll erase it. It's okay to use it. I'm just saying to prevent yourself from using it a lot. Those of you that have been with me a while on this channel, I preach that all the time. It's just like, don't use an eraser, don't use an eraser. I don't want you to think of an eraser as some polarizing tool that you shouldn't do or else you're doomed. No, don't do that. All right, so you see what I did there. I'm becoming more and more happy with this arm. It is rather human-like, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten the bicep area and I'm going to thicken the forearm. So it's not so human that it's as if somebody's just flexing their bicep, okay? Because it's very easy to do that. So a thicker wrist where all the carpals are located, the carpal bones, a smaller bicep. It's kind of like, when you see a big cat, okay, and you see the anatomy of a big cat. They have big forearms and big biceps, but it's built differently. Like there's emphasis on different areas. So I'm going to try to honor that. Okay, it's looking really weird. And also the thing you have to pay attention to now that you're putting in bigger shapes are the proportions of each body part. So the thigh area back here is obviously going to have to be thicker than the front. The reason is because with all this weight, I'm just going to assume that this creature is probably the size of a giant tortoise. And with giant tortoises, you need muscle to scoot those things along. But with this thing, being something that doesn't live on Earth, we don't know how big these things need to be. But it's definitely bow-legged, that's for sure. Poor thing. All right. See, I kind of just scratched in the shapes there. It's just like a ghosted gesture of whatever's going to exist. That's fine. And now what I'm doing is I'm rounding off the belly area because I know that the ribs are going to be sitting here. I know that the creature's scapula is going to be up here. But I'm also thinking that maybe, just maybe, this thing could probably look awesome with a shell of some kind. So I'll keep that idea handy. Now I want to come back over here towards the head, because I think the head, there's a lot of opportunity with this head. I also need to do some more line work in there to figure out, okay, so the center's down here. I'm thinking about making it a meat eater, but with a beak. That would be kind of neat. I'm just going to put in, because again, this is more of like a cylinder or a cone that comes to a point. I'm just going to put in some section lines running across. All right, right there. And then I'm just going to put in an area where I feel the eye could be. Did you notice that? Like, I didn't stop and think for 25 minutes, oh no, if I put an eye there, I'm going to mess everything up. It's just like, I don't care. It's so much easier when you just don't care. If you trust yourself and you trust your creativity to make something unique, remember, you're not making this for anybody else. You're making this for yourself. Whoever is viewing your own creation is already going to think you're creative. That's the thing, because they didn't draw this. I think that's the fear a lot of young artists have in their sketchbooks. It's like, and I keep saying this over and over again, your sketchbooks are your diary. No two people draw alike on this entire planet. Sure, styles might look similar, but nobody makes the lines like you do. All right, and nobody creates the things like you do. It doesn't matter if you draw scary demonic stuff, if you draw cute fuzzy things, it doesn't matter. Nobody does them like you. And you don't owe anybody anything. So when you sketch in your book and somebody's looking at it, they're not going to judge you as a person. Okay, they're going to look at your work and go, oh, that's cool. You just got to let them see it. That's all. Once you take the fear away of messing up and the fear of others judging you and the fear of not getting likes and all that, I mean, I'm guilty of that. You know, it took me a long time to not worry about that stuff. The more free you're going to get with your creations, I guarantee it. Okay, so I don't know if the stretched skin is going to work, but let's see what happens. Because I'm starting to think that maybe this thing is slightly aquatic. So if it has skin connecting the neck right here, then it's probably going to need webbed feet so that you can bring some of these design elements into other body parts. That's another thing that I teach in my creature design classes. You want to make sure that there's repetition that you see throughout the design and the rest of the body. If my voice sounds a little strange as it's moving past the camera, it's because I'm viewing my sketchbook from a couple different angles. So this is upright, but I'm also tilting my head to the side because the camera's right there. And then I have to look over it. All right, there we go. Okay. So with a lizard, with any kind of reptilian creature you're doing, it's probably going to need more pronounced jaws. Now, I did say in the beginning that this thing is going to have a beak. I still want a beak. Okay, so I think I did have a center line, but this is more of a center line of that original hexagon that I drew. Okay, on a flat plane. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a center line up the physical body. And I'm going to see, I connected that spine area that I have. Well, this is just the rest of it. So there's a dip right here. So those of you drawing along with me, make sure that you show that dip. Because what that is that's the separation from shoulders and trapezius muscles to the neck, and then from the neck to the head. This is going to prevent you from drawing a creature that looks like it does not have any neck. That you want to avoid that. That doesn't suggest that there aren't creatures that you can design where if there's no neck, it won't look cool. No, it probably could, like a giant troll or just something that can't move very well. But you're going to look like any actor that puts on a Batman suit because for some reason, none of the necks move correctly. I feel like Michael Keaton back in the day. They did a better job throughout the 90s, but I don't know. Michael Keaton couldn't move in that bat suit at all. It's kind of funny. It's like you pull a neck muscle and you're trying to drive. It's really, really bad. Okay, so I think right now the nose, this is just me thinking out loud, the nostril area is going to be separate from the beak. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to run the beak up here, up the center. So you see the point that I gave the beak. That's where the point of it's going to be. And then there's the top of the head. Okay. Oh, let's see what that looks like. And always, you can always be creative with beak shapes. This one is more in line with, I guess, like a stegosaurus, because they found out that it had a beak like a turtle. There's nothing fancy about them, but you can always still do some fun stuff, like a very pronounced bottom jaw or some cool beak vents or something. The nostril's on the beak, but this is outside of it, so you want to put that nostril on the other side too, right there. So you notice all of this is done with me just scratching in some basic shapes with the ink. All right, and if you're wondering how I'm actually holding my pen, I'm just using my pinky right here, and since this is a smaller sketchbook, it's a little easier for me to reach across the page. I'm just kind of gliding my pen, I'm gliding my hand across here, keeping everything light. Now the other thing, if you want to prevent yourself from putting in too many details, don't grip the pencil or pen, whatever you're drawing with, tightly. The tighter you grip your pencil, the more focused you have to put the pen or the tool that you're using. So like, if you point down, that's detail. If you leave it to the side, that's gestural. Always remember that part. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to ghost in the bottom jaw here. It kind of looks like a terror bird almost, but you know, that'd be fun to draw. Comment, like, put some comments down. That was really crass. Please comment about the creatures that you would like me to sketch. Like anything mythical, anything fun that you think I could do. I could go back, like I did a Godzilla last year. I did some other stuff like a Wendigo, I believe. But I could always get back into the mythical creatures. Like a siren, I'll do a griffin, whatever. Mythology, that would always work. All right, so as we start to get a better understanding of what this face is about, this creature probably is going to have some kind of armored head. Now we're getting into the whole Ankylosaurus, and maybe the Sauropelta, those types of armored dinosaurs with the big ball at the end of their tail. Ooh, that might be a fun thing to do, actually. And if you know me, I put in the details of the face. That's like a priority for me first, just to get the personality out and the shape of the bony landmarks, things that are going to pop out and really make this creature sing. Thank you all for sticking around so far to watch this and draw with me. It's a lot of fun. If you want to learn more about creature design, you can join our Discord, Creature Design Workshop. The link is in the description. It's a bustling community. People are joining every single day and sharing their insight, their tutorials. They're even showing pics of their studio. So it's a lot of fun. You meet new friends there. You guys can have your own little jams, your own little sketch sessions if you want. I'm also accepting early signups for my Creature Design Workshop starting in June. So this next month actually starts June 4th. So I always start the next Creature Design Workshop on the first Tuesday of the month. So whatever date that falls to, and it goes 4 weeks. So if you'd like to sign up, I'm taking early signups. I usually cap the class at about 8 people, but sometimes I allow a couple more depending on the demand. And I know that summer months are a little easier for people to sign up. The link is in the description also. So it'll be a lot of fun to meet new people and see new faces and see what kind of creations you have. All right, so now I'm looking at the head. I'm pretty happy with it. But that neck, so it's probably, I'm going to protrude the neck upwards just a little bit. What I mean by protrude is at the base of the cranium on the top right here. That's going to be like an armored plate. So let's do that. Let's honor that center line right here. I'm just walking it over. There's going to be a fleshy part. where the spinal column comes up and attaches to the bottom of that. Think about like a protoceratops, you know, or any of the triceratops, the monoclonius, any of those dinosaurs that were frilled. You know, they all have that point in the back where you have the armor, and then you have where the neck attaches under the armor. Okay, so this thing's pretty cool. Now I have to start looking at balancing out the proportions. A big thick head and skinny arms won't look right. So what I can do, and this happens in humans too, you can have a pretty skinny arm, biceps, triceps, and even the brachialis up here. And then you can have some pretty big forearms too. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool to have that for this creature, which will enable us to put some pretty neat finger joints down there at the bottom. Because remember, this thing might be webbed, so it could be walking on a fin with fingers sticking out of it. I don't know. And that'll just be a cool discovery that we can do as we continue to draw this. And I would like you to stick around a little bit longer, because after I explain the shapes and what I'm doing here, we're going to be doing some time lapse where you can see me gently put in details on the creature. I usually speed them up at about 20, maybe 30%. Anything faster than that, you won't really see what I'm putting in. Okay, so now we have reached a critical juncture, and that is what to do with the stretched skin across the shoulder area to the jaw. I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to eliminate it. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the creature. That doesn't suggest that I can't use webbed feet. Webbed hands, webbed feet. All right, maybe like a webbed tail, something that it can swim with. It just doesn't make sense because the neck and what needs to happen. So what I could do is add like a big gullet underneath there, and just put in a thicker neck right there, and then you got the lizard. Creature's deltoid. You got the sternocleidomastoid muscles running across. So remember, there's a lot of scales and everything running across there. So if you want to make this look believable, you don't have to put in spikes, and it's not ripped, okay? It's not, this thing isn't the Ronnie Coleman of creatures. There's going to be fat tissue. That actually looks more realistic than if you were to make all your creatures ripped. Like this thing, that's ripped. Of course, it doesn't exist too. It's like a four-armed humanoid big mouth thing. I don't know what it is. It was just fun to draw. But this one's going to have a little bit more meat on its bones. So I'm just going to connect that chest. Because right under here is where the creature's clavicle would be. Okay, I'm just spreading it out a little bit more, but I got to be careful. All right, so this is where the back of the jaw would bend. Okay, and then the beak. So this is flesh right here. This is the cheek. This is the bottom jaw. Okay, this is the chin out here. And there's still some things that we can do on that chin. All right, well, we won't do it quite yet. Okay, that's not bad. So up here is, I mean, it's all trapezius. But let's start playing with that other arm out there. So remember, there's the deltoid up here. Okay, it's going to come up like this. See how scratchy and loose I'm making the lines? That's because the great thing about a ballpoint pen is if you tilt the ball to the side, you can still get some pretty good shading in there, even like a pencil. The only difference is that it's not graphite, so it doesn't fill up as much area. Okay, so even when you turn it to the side and you sketch a couple lines, you can still see the lines distinctly. They don't bleed into each other like graphite does. So you just got to be careful with it. All right, so unlike a human, we got to add some thickness right here. It's going to be way down there. And then I'm just going to turn the pen slightly to the side and put in very light single hatching. I don't remember what video it was, but somebody asked me what's the difference between cross hatching and hatching. And it's like, well, you can kind of interchange the terms. But single hatching is just picking one direction, and it's like a fence. You just do a line straight across. Here, like I'll do it up here. You just like this. You don't do anything else. The closer they are together, the better it looks when it's shaded. Cross hatching is when you cross them and it's like a bunch of X's. But some people also just call that method too hatching. Whatever you're more comfortable with, it doesn't matter. But now I have to pay attention to what muscles would actually come out. And definitely the trapezius muscles. Okay, that gullet area, that's going to be very lightly drawn in. Maybe some indications of stretched skin and wrinkles and little spikes, but I'm not going to do anything fancy with that. One thing I do want to do is not keep the eyeball like a pure white cornea, because it looks like a demon, and it's not a demon. So I'm just going to give it just a little pupil in there, just a little indication, and then followed by thicker wrinkles around the eye. This is why using a pen is so nice. I don't have to sharpen to get those lines. Okay, just put some thicker skin, maybe showing some age, right in there. So yeah, I mean, you can see this type of skin on rhinos and hippos, giraffes, but especially rhinos. Like, it's beautiful to see how the skin just bunches up near the eye sockets like that. I don't want to make it look like it has some pretty lashes on it, because this thing does not have lashes. Oh my gosh, it totally does. But anyway, whatever. Okay, oh, and also the ear, we are keeping this reptilian, so I'm just going to put a little hole right there, right behind that plating for the head. And maybe some thicker skin around there where scales could exist. And then that's it. Okay, so next would be, I just totally wiped my train of thought there, and I just went into side tangents. I'm going to put in the other forearm here, and you're not going to see most of it because of perspective issues. I shouldn't say issues, just because of perspective. There's the bicep. All right, there we go. Okay, it actually needs a thicker neck. I just now noticed that. Okay, so I'm going to probably bring that right across that chest area. This is why it's important to keep everything light. This darker line that I drew right here, that can just be a stretched muscle. And then I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to darken this. I better be happy with that, because I just darkened that area and it's not going anywhere. Turn my hand a little bit. Cool thing about this particular sketchbook is I can, like, pretty much the whole thing is in frame, so I don't have to move it up and down too much for you guys to see. All right, so let's start figuring out what the heck is going on with the feet. This thing is going to have to spread those fingers to show that it's going to grip and probably swim. So maybe it has a bigger thumb that breaks off into two. Ooh, that's cool. There's the web feet. Do you see how I'm just thinking out loud? I'm not freaking out about what the joints should be doing. There's the foot, there's the claws, I'm done. So now I'm just putting in some of the claws. As I'm putting in the claws here, the other thing that's going to help the realism of your creature is when a clawed hand, or any hand for that matter, presses down on the floor or the ground, you have to show that muscle, fat, the nails, everything starts to contort to show that weight is being pressed down. And you need those fingers, or whatever's on there, to show that it's supporting it. There is several cop cars going by my place right now, so I tried to stop the video the first time. I'm just going to let them go. You probably heard that. One thing that I have to really pay attention to are the finger joints, okay, like the main knuckles. So I'm just indicating where they could be, because this webbing in here is really important, but also the thickness of the fingers are important too. This thing has to be strong, and it has to withstand this creature's weight, and this could be its functional feature. So one thing that I do teach in my course in creature design is that if you want your creature to live and breathe in a real space, you got to give it reason for existing. Okay, think about all the animals that are on the planet right now. Every single animal has a functional feature. Even cats. You're looking at them, you're going, yeah, it probably chases mice. That's not a functional feature. That's just living and eating. They have retractable claws for a reason, to climb things. They need it. You know, think about dinosaurs and like the velociraptor. It had that retractable claw so that when it jumped on its prey, it sunk that claw right into that flesh, and there's no way that it was leaving. All right. So with this creature's claw, or claws, maybe you can definitely grip some fish, because I'm thinking this thing's probably an omnivore. Originally I was thinking this thing could be straight up carnivore and it ate meat. But now that I'm thinking about it, it probably eats both. It has a cool beak. It's not super violent, so it doesn't only hunt things for meat, basically. So maybe we'll keep it neutral. Okay. Oh, wow, that thing's crazy looking. All right, so I'm just going to put in some ovals for where the knuckles are, and then I'm going to very lightly put in some stretched skin to make it look like that's the membrane that's connecting the webbed feet. And there's definitely going to have to be some skin wrinkles there. This whole area right here is the carpal area. Okay, that's where all the carpal bones are bunched up, allowing this creature to have a lot of freedom to how it moves. There we go. I'm just slightly indicating where those tendons could be in the hand. And we don't need to go into a ton of detail on it, but one thing I do want to do is make very dark claws and then leave a strip in the middle to show where the reflection could be. Because remember, we are using a ballpoint pen. And if you just use the tone of the paper as the reflection, you don't have to go back and desperately try to find gouache or anything to color in a... I mean, you could, but you don't have to color in a reflection. So there we go. And then if you just take your pen, just lightly put in some cool markings. This is very, very light. Again, I'm turning the ball to the side. There we go. A lot of fun. So hopefully you're learning something. Feel free to comment. Just tell me what you're drawing, what you ended up sketching. Check out the links in the description for our Creature Design Workshop Discord. And just show us what you were sketching during the video. I love seeing that stuff. And so does everybody else. Everybody's learning from each other. Never put in a darkened outline with a pen until you were 100% confident in the shapes that you had put down underneath that line. All right, so this arm is going forward. So this one is obviously back a little bit. And I'm just going to indicate, turn this a little bit, I'm just going to indicate where those are. So these two fingers are going to be behind this perspective-wise. So this whole hand out here is just going to be tilted. So it's going to be very lightly drawn. I'm not worried too much about the details over there because the head is actually going to be getting more detail. And then I'm just going to indicate ever so slightly where a core shadow could be. There we go. And then down here at the chin and the end of the beak, since that beak is going to be in shadow, you got to be very careful. This is where patience comes in. Okay. And the little nostril hole, probably be darkened a little bit. In here in the face, if you constantly lightly scratch in small pen strokes, and when they start overlapping, that is forming skin texture. So you don't have to worry about, oh man, do I put scales in there? What do I put in there? Like fur? Like it just let that happen. Because yeah, you could go in here and put in big circles for the larger scales. Yeah. Like that would be kind of neat. Especially if you're drawing something like an iguana. Okay, because they all have those really cool scales on their chin. Like that really large one on the side of their jaw. It's really cool looking. But you could do tiny little ones too. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Just put in just a little bit more indication of that forearm over there. Like that. Okay, so let's think about what we want to do to that back foot. And you could bring in some of the design elements in this one. Okay, so maybe it does have double claws over here, but I'm going to make that joint for the toes. But you can't really see them out here because it's not important. So I'm just going to scribble them in. What I'm drawing out here is not nearly as important as what I'm showing up here in the front. Okay. This is going to be more of a flat tail. I could make this a dimetrodon, that would be kind of cool, but I'm going to put some spikes on its back. And then, as I'm drawing this, I just realized, wouldn't it be neat if those spikes were connected by a membrane? But you have to follow that spinal column, that center line that I drew in the very, very beginning. That is how you're going to prevent yourself from getting confused as to where the heck those things are going to be located, down the head and the neck and the back and the tail. And if you darken them up, especially with a pen, any markings you put around those darkened spikes won't affect the spike because the spikes are already darker than the surrounding area. The same thing can happen when you're sketching with a pencil. Okay, the darkest areas are never going to be affected by new graphite that you put around the area. It's already dark. See, like this, I can just start sketching over the spikes where I want other muscles to be, and it's okay. It's like nothing's wrong, even with a pen. And it's always fun. Here's another cool trick. Whenever you have a spike or horn or whatever, make the tips darker and then fade it off into the rest of the spike, because it makes the spike feel more complete. There we go. Now as they go into the background, the details are going to fade. But one thing that won't fade is the silhouette of those spikes, okay? Because I'm just going to be making sure that they do stand out as I go down the body here. Down here in the tail, I can probably just indicate maybe a cool shape. Kind of looks like a scorpion, but not really. I don't really care about that tail. I'm just going to indicate that it has one. That's not the important part. I could spend 3 days on this drawing, and it'll have the same effect as if I just spend the next 10 minutes putting details in the face. I'm going to leave it up to you guys and girls and your imagination as to what could be happening on the rest of its body. Maybe if you're sketching along with me, you have an alternate version of this critter. That would be kind of cool. I think what I will do is just show where the claws are on that other foot, because it's kind of looking bare in that area. Okay. Just like the slightest lines like this, and this is where I single hatch. I'll just put in single hatching in one direction, very, very light. I wonder how many times I've said very in this video. Okay, we got that, and there we go. It looks like it's fading into the background. There's not a lot of detail on that leg. I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so I'm going to put a light membrane connecting the spikes. Another cool trick and thing to remember when you're doing something like this, especially if you're drawing, I mean, even a duck's foot or whatever you're doing, if it swims. Never put the membrane, the sail, the fin, or whatever, don't connect it to the very, very tip. It just allow the spike to come up a little bit, and then the membrane is slightly under it. It adds an extra dimension to that whole membrane area. All right, there we go. And then maybe just scribble in some markings at the base of those spikes to show that it's attached to the back. You don't want to just fade them into oblivion, like the base of it, without indication that they're attached to anything. That needs to be darker. So probably the very tip up here. This is the highest point. When you're putting spikes down the creature, even Godzilla, look at the highest spike on the back of Godzilla's back, and it's usually in the strongest point of the back. And if you're going to do it in the tail, same thing. Look at a Stegosaurus in side view. Okay, the biggest plates are near the middle of the back and the hip. All right, it's just how it evolves. It's how it grows. The majority of the body mass is back here, so it needs the majority of the mass of the spikes and the webs and the plates to help that body move along, especially if it's swimming. So the trapezius runs back there. Indication of the side of the gut. Okay, so we got a pretty cool critter here. Now we don't need many more details. There we go. No veins. We don't need veins. Maybe indications of some bigger scales that can just exist on the place. Right like that. So much fun. I love drawing stuff like this. Just making up a lizard. I don't know where this would live on Earth if it did, but probably with the Komodo dragons, maybe in the desert. I don't know. It'd be fun to think about, though. It'd be fun to think about the deserts on other planets, too. I mean, look at Mars. The only difference is, you can't breathe on Mars, but also it's freezing. Super cold. But Mars is a desert. There we go. All right, so what we did today for this creature is took a hexagon, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, and then we turned it to the side in perspective. And if you want to practice that with any of the shapes, I mean, you could even get something crazy like a kite. Okay, even a kite, geometric shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do a kite. That could be the spine, legs come out there. A lot of really cool different shapes you can do. If you want to do a nonagon, decagon, heptagon, hexagon, pentagon, whatever gon, even a parallelogram. Okay, it's just a slanted rectangle. You could do that and practice doing those shapes in perspective. Okay, and really broaden the horizon so you can kind of see the underbelly of this whole drawing. Okay, that original hexagon that I put in there, and then it turned into this thing. If you haven't done so already, I would appreciate that you check out our Discord link. Join up today if you really love creatures and you want to learn how to better your skills at that and even learn how to draw more realistically when it comes to animals. Join our Discord. It's a bustling community, and we talk about stuff every day, even movies and games, all that fun stuff. It's just a nice community. I have a creature design workshop coming up. Early signups for June. June 4th on a Tuesday is the first one. If you can't make June, just make sure that you like and subscribe, and then keep track of whenever I have the workshops. Okay, summer months tend to be busier. I usually cap it at eight students. So let me know what you want to do. Check the links in the Discord, check the links in the description about it, how to sign up, everything. And happy drawing, folks. Thanks for tuning in. See you later.